to sit at your feet. I hear you call. I'm longing to meet you. I lift my face to you and catch your eye. Oh, how you satisfy.
So glad to see you again.
Yeah, so good to see you too. We're very excited for your talk. Thank you for saying yes, and thank you for being here. We prayed for you before you came on, so we're just going to hand over to you and speak to you at the end. All right?
All right. I hope I can make it, because this is going to be in English, but bullets, because I'm a little nervous. My English is not as good as my Spanish, but with the help of God, I think I'm going to try.
Yes, amen, amen, amen. God bless you. Okay.
Okay, the word of Mary Magdalene has a lot of meanings. It's a very, very, very essential character of the Gospels, and especially Mary. The word Mary is very important, because that's how she was called. The word Magdalene comes from another meaning, and I will explain to you why. Now we have a lot of new evidence on this amazing character of Mary Magdalene, new papyri, new archaeology that demonstrate that she was very unique, and she's a very essential character in the Gospel, in the New Testament. She has a lot of protagonism. She's one of the most important figures of the New Testament, because she was in the most important moments of the Passion of the Lord, which is the crucifixion and the resurrection. Not all of the apostles did this. Only she and Saint John in the cross, but we will see that why is she so important. She has been very much slandered. It's a character that has suffered a lot of slandering, of confusion. She has been very unknown. Sometimes she has been even punished by scholars from great university and experts in papyri, which is very strange. But it has an explanation, and we will show it now. And she was also very told off by the apostles. Even the apostles told her off all the time, especially Peter. And we will see in a minute why. No, she then demonstrated many times that she was braver than the apostle, bold to the extreme, noble, strong, and she was an amazing woman. Let's start from speaking about the name Magdalene. Magdala, it's a place. I mean, it's, for example, as if everybody meets me and they said Maria from Madrid and then Maria Madrid. No, that's the same thing. She lived in Magdala. That is why it's not a surname. It's the way we know her, because she lived there. In those times when they got married, they got the name of the husband, you know, Mary of whatever, of John, or Mary of Philip, or whatever. But she was not married. So that's why she was called Mary from Magdala, Mary the Magdalene. The name Magdala has a meaning. It means city of salted fish, or city of the tower of the salted fish. Why? Because it was a place that had a market of fishing. It was a very noisy, uproarious, rowdy, busy, boisterous little village or town, bustling and full of market people, businesses, very restless in many ways, and also riotous, because this little village was dominated by the Roman Empire. They were invaded by Rome. So they had soldiers there that were trying to keep peace in the population, because the Jews in that area were very angry with the Roman Empire. They didn't like to be completely dominated by the emperor. So it was an upheaval. It was a difficult time when Mary Magdalene lived in Magdala. And because of the market, and because of the businesses and travelers, people in that kind of finance world, there were a lot of pensions, let's say little hotels, no, from that area. Imagine how they were. They were not like the Ritz, I guess, or 5-star hotels, but they were pensions and lodgings, and people stay there. And that is why in Magdala there was a lot of prostitution, because it was a passing place. It was People went, did businesses, and they left. And, you know, that kind of thing, that kind of atmosphere attracts a lot prostitution and brothels and things like that. But that doesn't mean that Mary Magdalene was a prostitute. Not at all. We will see now why I say this. There was a lot of innkeepers, a frenetic activity. And of course, you know, they also have people from the Jews, from the Hebrew world, that were also high society. And Mary Magdalene was one of those. She was one of those. The village or the town was surrounded by a huge wall that protected public buildings, the town hall. It has squares, fountains, statues, and it was an 8 hours walking distance from the east of Capernaum, and very close to Bethsaida. It was a day and a half of walking distance. And also this place had the palace of Herod, which was the king of the Jews, and he was not liked at all, but he had, it was like a vacation place. People of high society from the tribes of Israel went there for summer vacation, as I am now in the south of Spain. It was more or less like this. And the family of Mary Magdalene owned a castle there, and she lived there. Now we're going to jump in a very, very special beatified woman that I admired a lot. Her name is Anne-Catherine Emmerich. She's a beatified person. She lived in 1774 and she died in the 1824. And she was beatified by John Paul II. This Blessed Anna Caterina had amazing visions about the Lord, about the Passion. And we have to remind our viewers that the actor and producer and director Mel Gibson used her descriptions to do the movie of the Passion of the Lord. Of course, all these descriptions have been accepted by the Vatican. They don't say it's the true 100% truth, because our religion, we believe the only 100% truth we have to believe on is the Bible, full stop. The canon, the collection of the books that belong to the Bible, that's it. But these private revelations are very, very interesting indeed. And if the Catholic Church has accepted this vision of Blessed Anna Caterina of Emmerich, it is very interesting that we can discuss them now with you. For example, little details that don't appear in the Bible, but appear in the revelation, the private revelations of Anne-Catherine Emmerich, about the parents of Mary Magdalene. She even gave us the names. She says the names with Zara for the father and Jezabel for the mother. Mary Magdalene was the youngest little girl of the family, and this couple had 15 children, 15, but many of them died. In those times, it was very easy for a baby to die. So they have a little flu, not the COVID, but different things, and they just passed away. So when the story of Mary Magdalene interests us, which is the time of Jesus' time, there are only four brother and 3 sisters left. The eldest was Lazarus, and then there was Martha. The third one was Prisca Miriam, and the little one is our Mary Magdalene. Sister Anna Caterina Emmerich says that the father, Zara, in his blood, he had Egyptian blood. He was a wealthy man. He was a businessman that was working in Syria before she was born. And he actually worked in the palace of the king of Syria, which is in Arabia. And Jezabel, which was the mother, was pure Jew. She was pure Jew, and she belonged to the Levi family, the Levi tribe. So we have this combination in Mary Magdalene, and she was, as I said, the little one. This middle sister, the Blessed Anne-Catherine of Emmerich, says this third sister called Prisca Miriam was a very mysterious person, a very mysterious character that she saw in her visions, and she lived at the very end of the garden of Lazarus. Lazarus was the eldest man, and the eldest brother, and the one who inherited the lands and the palaces. And he accepted the sisters to live with him so that he could protect them. Mary Magdalene was an orphan since she was 7 years old. Why? Because this couple, when they got pregnant with Mary Magdalene, they thought they were not going to be able to have more babies. This happens a lot, old couples, and suddenly the wife says, Many, I'm starting this menopausic time, and boom, and the baby comes. So these children used to be, it's very normal nowadays as well. They're a little bit spoiled because the mom is a little old. She doesn't have the energy that she used before for the previous children. So this little Mary Magdalene was like a big surprise for the whole family. And the mother really, really spoiled her. When they passed away, Mary Magdalene inherited the castle of Magdala. She inherited that palace. The father left Lazarus a lot of wealth, a lot of things, but this little one inherited the castle of Magdala. And let me tell you something interesting. And Catherine of Emmerich says that when the parents passed away, she was only 7 years old, as I said, but she didn't suffer that much, the loss of the parent. Firstly, because she was very spoiled. She was completely surrounded by love, a lot of servants, a lot of slaves, and she was very, very, very spoiled. So she preferred to have her things than to be with her mom. And that character, since the mom passed away, became very, very frivolous, very cheeky, very insolent, very disobedient. I mean, Lazarus and Martha and Prisca tried to educate her, but she was wild at heart. She was very rebellious. So when she grew a little bit older, she said, now I have power and I want to go to live in Magdala. And not even the tears of her sister Martha convinced her to stay. So she was very independent. So she left the brother and the two sisters in Bethany, and she went to Magdala. What do we know about her physical appearance? What does Bless Anne Catherine says about Mary Magdalene? Well, she says that she saw her blonde, extraordinarily beautiful, long hair, no veil, loose hair. The clothes, she even describes the clothes as she describes the Pharisees in the Passion of the Lord that copied Mel Gibson for the movie. Even these little girls, below these huge crowns of the Pharisees. Again, in this time, Emmerich is amazing. She described every single detail of the robes that she was using. And she said that she loved beautiful clothes. As many young girls, many rich girls now, they go to Harrods and they buy these beautiful things. When Mary Magdalene was a Harrods girl, and she loved the fashion, and she loved to cover her head with plaits and pearls and gems and jewels. And the clothes were amazing. They were made of silk and threads of gold. It's amazing, the things she described. In our culture, she has come like that. Even, I mean, Bless and Catherine of Emmerich, she was very ignorant. She doesn't even know how to write properly or read properly. So it's very strange how she was capable to describe all these things. In the world of the art, it's painted like that. If you go to any kind of important museum and the masterpieces of Mary Magdalene, you can see the portraits like that, very rich clothes and jewels and everything. Our Lady, on the contrary, always was serene, with a serene expression and tender looks. But Mary Magdalene is always with red, which is the color of the passion, of the love, of sex as well, to reflect all the theories that they say about her, except with a lot of brocades, also brocades and things like that, and with a face full of emotion. Now I'm going to give you an information which is super important. In the year 591, in the year 591, the Pope Gregory the Magnum put the three women that comes in the gospel together. Until that time, the Catholic Church thought that they were three different women. They didn't know exactly who they were, but they knew that there was one Mary of Bethania, which was Lazarus' sister, another Mary, which is like anonymous. It's the one that anoints Jesus' feet during that dinner, that private dinner. And the third one, a Mary Magdalene, the one who was exorcised by Jesus, and Jesus took 7 demons from her. And this Pope says, no, it's not they are not different. It's the same person. And that has come until now. Until now, there are a lot of theologians, every professor in a very important university of theology, they say, we don't agree anymore with Pope Gregory the Magnum. We think they are different people. But in my case, I prefer to follow what the Pope Gregory said. I really think reading and rereading and studying the Bible, it's a private way of understanding. And I think, yes, it was the same woman, but depends of each of us what would we decide. What this Pope said trespasses into popular imaginary, and it gets into the art. That is why in the paintings, they are the same. The three persons are the same. They still thought there was the same woman, but it's not important. What it's important is what the gospel says, and we will concentrate also in that. Remember that the truth stays in the gospel, in our canon. The rest is not that relevant. That's important to know. Okay. Magdalene in the big artist, in the big masterpieces, is always pictured with a mirror flask, reminding that she was the one who anointed the feet of the Lord. Look at this. This is an interesting information. Our Queen Elizabeth the Catholic in medieval times loved so much Mary Magdalene, the person of Mary Magdalene, that every time she asked for a painting of Mary Magdalene, she asked the painter to put her own face. So all the paintings that we have of Mary Magdalene at the time of Queen Elizabeth the Catholic is her face, is her own face, the Queen's face. She portrays herself under the personage of Mary Magdalene. Mary Magdalene is for us, for all of us, today, yesterday, and tomorrow, and forever, a model of sanctity. And after Our Lady is the most important woman of who has been painted in the masterpieces. No, she has a role of sanctity, and she's very much loved in the Catholic Church, and we have to respect that. There are two versions that study, let's say, two branches that study the character of Mary Magdalene. One is the Oriental Greek tradition. It's very much unknown. It says that she retired with Our Lady to Ephesus, where she passed away and at an old age, and whose body remains were gotten to Constantinople, were transported to Constantinople. That's one tradition, okay? There's the Occidental tradition, is the one we follow, based on the legend, the golden legend of Giacomo della Voragine. Giacomo della Voragine was a writer. He was a bishop in medieval times, and he studied 180 saints who were martyrs, and one of them, he dedicates one whole chapter on Mary Magdalene, and that is the one we have followed and we have more or less believed, let's say it that way. But from the canonical point of view, remember that Magdalene was the only one who stood at the foot of the cross with St. John and the Virgin, Our Lady. Mary Magdalene is the one who was in the Garden of the Resurrection, and that's it. That is what those are the two very important hotspots in the Gospels about Mary Magdalene. And in the legend, the golden age of Giacomo della Voragine is in the 12th century, and there we know that Mary Magdalene received a lot of rebukes from Martha. Martha was always telling her little sister off. She was always telling her, don't put those pearls on your head, you're too vain. It's very interesting. I really recommend people who are interested in this beautiful book to buy it. It's from the 12th century or the end of the 11th century, but it gives us a lot of information. Remember that in the year 70, the Temple of Jerusalem is completely destroyed, devastated by the Roman Empire. And since then, Giacomo della Voragine says she escaped after that, and she became a hermit, as a penitent hermit, living in a cave for the rest of her life in the south of France. It's very, very interesting. Okay, she witnesses, why is so important Mary Magdalene? Because she witnesses many miracles. She stayed with Jesus at the foot of the cross, as I said before, while the apostle left the cross, she stayed there with John, and John was the youngest. He was the youngest. Let's talk also about a lot of little curiosities, because we have women, you know, now in this YouTube listening to us, and women, we love curiosity. So let's talk about little curiosities from Catherine of Emmerich about Mary Magdalene. The name Mary Magdalene, I said, Magdalene comes because she lived in Magdala, which was, as I said, a very boisterous town, full of light, very close to the Sea of Galilee, because, you know, that is why they had this market of fish, the fish market. And the complete name is Magdala Tariechea, which means Tower of the Salted Fish. The town market was immense in very, very peculiar scents and smell. Imagine a super huge market with fish, with nets, with mussel, with fresh fruit, with spices, with silks, with perfumes, everything. And that explains that why they had this, you know, a lot of traveling. A lot of people go and went through Magdala to buy all these things. The castle of Magdala was in the middle. It was sited at the bottom of the mountain and inside the walls that surrounded the city. And as I said, it was a beautiful city. They have fountains, they have statues. The king went there, Herod. And Mary Magdalene's palace was smaller than the one of Herod, but it was close. It was like in the posh area. You know, again, very close to Harrods and very close to Buckingham Palace, in that kind of area. And she spent many afternoons in her balcony, full of pearls, full of perfume, very vain, very well dressed, looking and watching over the balcony the young men and the important men that she was attracted to, and she wanted to flirt with them. Who were these people? The Romans, because the Romans were the important people, you know, the people with power in that town at that moment, no? So Mary Magdalene belonged to this family who was wealthy. She didn't need anything apart, that, you know, she had everything she wanted. As I said, she was very, very spoiled, and she really enjoyed being in Magdala. And even if the sister and brother cried all the time, trying to convince her to go back to Bethany, she said, no way, I'm here. I'm going to stay here. So Bethania, the house of Bethania of Lazarus is also described at, and Catherine of Emmerich, she says that it's a super, super beautiful, super elegant. I'm talking about Lazarus' house in Bethany now. He owned more properties. He owned, apart from this house in Bethany, he owned a land with gardens, fountains, date plantations, livestock, and the sisters who lived with him, Prisca, Miriam, and Martha, were taking care of the house, especially Martha. Emmerich says that Martha is the one who was taking care of the kitchen, the meals, how to organize, to entertain their friends. It's very interesting because it coincides a lot with things of the gospel, no? And Martha was very domestic. She was in charge of the house, and all the maids they had were under her commands. And Prisca Miriam was very shy, and she didn't mingle very much in the most important parts of the house. Being the youngest, Mary Magdalene didn't need to go to that house at all, because she had all her servants with her. And she became very, very coquettish. Without the influence of Martha, who stayed back in Bethania, she became so coquettish, flirtatious, frivolous, disobedient. And you know, what she really wanted was to flirt and to have a lot of boyfriends. That is why in the Jewish mentality, this was like a prostitute. They didn't like this at all. Girls had to be very prudent. And of course, she was flirting with the enemy, because as I said, Rome was the one who invaded Magdalene. So stubborn and vain, she stayed there with her servants, full of luxury, and her head full of silly notions. Her character, she was also temperamental and moody, and she felt that she was like a queen. She was awesome. She was beautiful. A lot of admirers. and she really was engrossed in clothes and gems and fascinated with fashion. She always the brother and sister were flabbergasted with disgust. From time to time, they went to Magdala trying to convince her to stop that behavior because the gossip was very bad and it arrived to their ears and they were suffering at all. They were suffering at all. And they even told her off and even called her, "You're going to become a prostitute if you continue like this." And she was super angry when they say that to her. But that was the mentality for the Jewish people. It didn't mean at all that she was a prostitute. There is not one historical evidence on Mary Magdalene that she was a prostitute in the Bible. Not one. No indication whatsoever. That's a calumny, that's a slandery. And it comes also from a papyrus called the Lamentation of Rabbah. This is a very old papyrus, a document that has been found, and it has been studied in several universities. But in it, all what it says is God judged with a strong hand Magdala for all its sinning, but that doesn't mean that she was a prostitute. God was angry because of the prostitution and the life and the craziness of Magdala, because again, all the fishing, all the markets, but that doesn't mean that she was a prostitute at all, no? At all. So that's, I think that's clear now. I just cleared up that she's not a prostitute. But yes, she was very vain, and her conduct with men was not proper at all. She loved to be with powerful people. She entertained a lot. She invited the Romans. They have banquets and parties, and she didn't want to get married. Again, this was a scandal because those girls, remember Our Lady with 15 years old, she got married. They married very young because they died very young. They didn't last as us so many years. So life was shorter, and these girls, if they stayed as a spinster, it was a shame for the family, and so they just couldn't understand. She was too modern in her way of thinking. Men went crazy with her, and she got a lot of boyfriends, some more serious than others. And this attitude, of course, was a very big scandal for the tribe of Jerusalem. And the family was very worried with her. What was very worried with her. She, of course, rejected many marriage offers because she wanted her freedom. And then in the middle of this mess, Jesus erupts. She rushed into her life. How come? How did this happen? One day, Martha, who was a very good friend of Jesus, they have been following him. They have been followers of Jesus for a while, for a couple of years maybe. And Lazarus, especially, Lazarus was a very good friend of Jesus. They went to visit Mary in Magdala and said, "Listen, you have to meet our friend. He's a saint. He's the Son of God." And he came like a volcano. He came like a hurricane in Mary Magdalene's life, and he switched over her whole existence. She had to change after meeting him. And she had to expel many bad things in her life, like the vanity, the ambition, the coldness, the aloofness. It was a very difficult change for her because she had never heard about someone like Jesus, like him before. Never. And every man that she wanted to flirt with, she got him. But this time, no, this was this very holy man that didn't want that. He just wanted to save her soul. So Lazarus was the one who told Jesus that he was very worried about his little sister. And Jesus said, "Why don't you bring her to me, because I'm going to give this speech in this mountain very soon." So they convinced her. They sent Martha to Magdala, and they convinced her to go. Martha said, "Come and see." Of course, the devil immediately was very angry, and Emmerich explains that Mary Magdalene didn't understand why suddenly she was furious with her sister Martha, and she started to scream at her, to insult her, to make fun of her. That's the devil indicating that he was starting to be really agitated because he saw that Jesus was going to approach this soul and he was going to lose it. But curiosity, women, we are so curious. So curiosity was what pushed Mary Magdalene to say, okay, I don't believe any of this. This is a magician or a wizard, or I don't know who you are following, but I'm going to go with you. So in this time, the curiosity killed the cat was good because it cast the devil out of her, all this situation. So she went to this first meeting with her sister Martha, with John of Cusa, that's a name that comes in Emmerich's writings too, and to a place called Jezreel. She even gives us the place of Jezreel. I don't know where it is. It must be a little mountain close to Jerusalem, but that's where they went. And the first encounter is unbelievable. Emmerich says that Mary Magdalene was on the balcony. They stopped, the whole entourage, her friends, the group of friends, they were very tired because they went walking. Sometimes they went on donkeys or on horses, but they stopped in a little pension to have a drink, to have a refreshment. And she was in the balcony just enjoying the view when suddenly out of the blue, they saw a big group of people in the main street, and there was Jesus in the middle, followed by some of his apostles, and a great uproar and racket. And some people were like singing, others were dancing, others were crying, but the people were agitated. Some of them were super happy, others were screaming because they were liberating. And she was like, what on earth is happening? Is that Jesus? I mean, followed by this humongous group of people who are trying to touch, and she saw that these people were trying to touch Jesus, even the little hem of his garment. You know, it's amazing because he resembles the Gospels in the four Gospels, no? And she was looking at him, and suddenly he turns his head up, and their eyes met. And it's unbelievably beautiful how Emmerich describes that first encounter. He says that, boom, something extraordinary and supernatural pierced her soul when Jesus looked up at her. She was in the balcony, he was downstairs with all these people. And she felt that as if his soul was penetrating her sins, one by one. And she felt like running or to escape from his penetrating gaze. And Emmerich explains that Mary Magdalene, jumped backwards. She fell on the ground and super scared, not understanding what's going on. She crawled on the floor and hid underneath a table. She couldn't stand God's eyes. Why? Because the devil suddenly got scared. She was full of demons. And they couldn't stand the gaze of Jesus, no? So she was extremely agitated and escaped from the terrace. And she felt very confused, very scared. And later on, Lazarus was looking for her because she never went down. He said, where were you? And he found her under this table. I said, Mary, what have you done? Why are you hidden here? She said, I don't know. He looked at me and I couldn't stand his gaze. She understood that he had something. This woman immediately understood that this friend of his brother and his sister was very special, and that he was proclaiming the way to salvation, and the way to salvation for her was going to be super difficult. So she went back to Magdala, and then hell erupted. The devil was just then very agitated. He was suspecting that this lady that he was possessing was going to get rid of him because Jesus was getting closer and closer. And since that first day, her life became so different from what it had been before. Because since that day, he was like knocking, hitting, beating, pounding, punching against the wall. She had attacks. She had demonic attacks, and she was not controlling them. It was something inside of her. Of course, she was possessed, but she didn't know that she was possessed before. She lost control of her actions. She spat on the servants. The servants were so scared of her. The situation was totally horrible. She was completely horrified, scared, and astonished, and so confused. Emmerich saw that Emmerich was completely sure that this Mary Magdalene was the same person that Jesus took that demons of, so again, we have that Pope, Gregory the Great, that, believe the same thing. Anyway, we will continue. Jesus, meanwhile, was gaining fame. He was becoming super famous because he was curing a lot of people who had leprosy, who were possessed. He was liberating possessed people or around Galilee. He was curing miraculously from diseases that had no cure. For example, leprosy. And he performed these cures publicly, with no shame, not privately, not in a temple, everywhere. And the most incredible thing of Jesus is that he didn't distinguish between religions or age or sex. Nothing matters to him but love the people. He was curing and he was helping. So, he was full of piety, and his fame grew and grew and grew. And Mary Magdalene really tried in this time, she really tried to forget the Lord. She really tried to forget him, because she said, since I saw him, I'm sick. Before, she was not sick. She didn't realize she was possessed until their eyes, they got that gaze went between them. So she went back to sinning. She said, okay, I'm going to forget about this Jesus. He must be a magician or something. I want to. And when she went back to sinning, then the devil got really strong. The Bible says that if Jesus liberates and you sin again, then maybe 7 more devils come to you. You have to be very careful, because that is how it works. Jesus helps, but you have to respond. And she was so confused that she went back to sinning. Nothing was the same. One day, she thought that it was too much, and she felt the urge to go and visit him again, because she was feeling really bad. She was very confused. So she asked Martha to take her again where Jesus was preaching. This time, she took him to a mount next to Gabara. I don't know again where the place is, but Emmerich gives us the place. Mary Magdalene felt really uncomfortable. I'm very scared this second time. She went up to the mountain. Again, it was full of crowded, thousands of people. And she saw him in the distance in the top of this mountain. But this time, she didn't know why she felt so bad when she was in front of the master. And she started to shake. This time she took the boyfriend, the Roman boyfriend, with her, and a big entourage of friends. So she was very nervous, because everybody was seeing all these friends that gave her reassurance, and she felt very comfortable with. They were going to talk, they were going to gossip, because she was doing these movements that she could not control. Of course, the devil was again very shaky, because Jesus was in front. So it was a huge a scene, a very dark scene, and she started to vomit. She was completely terrorized, and she immediately started to mouth at Martha horribly. She began to scream at her sister and to insult her, but Martha didn't defend herself. She cried and prayed and looked to the Lord and said, look, my sister is here. Do something from the distance. Their companions watched the scene totally terrified, and she took time in a moment that she was controlling. She said, Martha, help me. You have to take me closer to him. But imagine the mass of people. It was super big. I mean, it was a huge crowd. So Martha said, listen, I heard that he has been invited to a dinner. The Lord has been invited to a dinner. Let's go together. Let's go to this dinner. So, they waited until the right moment, and they went to this dinner. This dinner was in the house of a Pharisee. Again, it's in the Bible. Some scholars, let me tell you before we go to that dinner, some scholars think that she was not possessed, that she was schizophrenic. For example, my father, who passed away many years ago, he was a fantastic psychiatrist, very famous in my country. He won many prizes in medicine, and he was a believer. And every time these scenes of the gospel came out, he always said to me, listen, Maria, As a doctor, I tell you, these things that are described in the Bible of Mary Magdalene are schizophrenias. And he died thinking that. I don't agree. I'm sorry, Daddy, I know you're in heaven. I don't agree. I think she was possessed completely. So the situation went out of hand upon the end of the day. And it was really a Calvary for Mary Mother, because she was like exploding. It was very, very strange for everybody there. So from one moment to the other, she stopped the insults and begged Martha to bring her to this dinner. The man that invited Jesus, his name was Zebulon, and she was a rich Jew that had invited the master with his closest companions. But when Mary Magdalene entered in that house, she was not invited. She invited herself. When she saw Jesus, she couldn't help it. She threw her face onto his feet. In one gospel, they said she cried, and with her tears, and she cleaned the feet of the Lord. And on the other, the gospel said she put the oil, the perfume, on top of the head of Jesus, on the head of Jesus. So she did all this under the impulses of love, sneaking into the dining room, crying rivers of tears, approaching the master, and the people in the table were angry, said, "Take this woman out." But the Lord answered with a lot of love, a lot of tenderness, said, "No, just let me calm her down." And she went back home completely and utterly confused, knowing that Jesus was the Son of God. And that was where the conversion happened totally. And upon her return to Magdala, then is when the devil got completely angry and really was feeling that he was losing the battle for good. So she had a lot of manifestation, physical pain, screams, shakings, kicking, insults again to the servants, but in a completely wild way. She lost control on her composture every day, every now and then. The episodes of violence were horrible. The servants got so scared of her that the lover left. The Roman couldn't stand her anymore. Apparently he was a brute that kicked her and slapped her, and he left. Thank God he left. And she was felt alone with this demon inside, furious. The devil was weakened. It has been weakened, of course, but Jesus had to take him out. So she was consumed with desperation, and the servants, terrified, fled for Martha and Lazarus. And this brother and this sister came, took her for good, and took her back to Bethany, where she stayed in the house of her family. And there Jesus, at last, she was very much humbled by all these things, and he could do the exorcisms, and he cleared her out. So the spiritual liberation arrived, and after that spiritual liberation, she was an incredible follower of Jesus. He loved him, he followed him, he threw all the jewels away, she gave them to the poor, she sold the castle of Magdala, and with all that money, he helped Jesus and his followers. He didn't care anymore. She just wanted to be a follower of our Lord. She wanted to learn from him. That is when he met Our Lady. Emmerich explains many details. I don't have the time, I'm sorry, but it's very interesting how she befriended Our Lady, and she believed in her heart that it was like a mother to her. Another very important thing of the writings of Emmerich about this moment, this precise moment, is that when Jesus talked, he understood perfectly. It's unbelievable, because many times in the gospel, the apostle says, "Lord, we don't understand you." Well, that didn't happen to her. She understood him very well. It looks as if her soul was so open to him that she understood him even sometimes much better than the main apostles, no? So and we are jumping in the future because time is running out, I'm sorry. And after the death of the Lord, remember that she is the first one who went to the sepulcher, and Jesus appeared to her in the garden. Is the first one who sees the Lord alive, resurrected. Let's say resurrected. When the Lord said, "Don't touch me, don't touch me. I haven't go back to my God yet. We have to wait." So, it's incredibly interesting, because this comes in the gospel. I completely believe is true. And this precise moment where Jesus says, "Don't touch me," and she realizes that it's her Lord, her Jesus, I think it's the moment that changed the whole history of humanity, because in that precise moment, Christianism becomes not a movement, but a religion. Again, I repeat, it's one of the most important moments in our Christianity, because in that precise instant, Christianism passed to be from a movement to become a complete religion. So it's a very, very important moment, that moment of the encounter of Jesus and Mary Magdalene. So she becomes the apostle of the apostles. She becomes one of the most important apostles. In the Bible, she was never called like that, the apostle of the apostles. She hasn't been called like that. Sadly, in any part of the gospel, it's called like that, and sometimes the gospel don't treat her properly. They scorn her a little bit. So her fame, anyway, her fame went to the whole area like the wind. It spreads like the wind. And you know, little lies started to appear, like she was a prostitute, she was a villain, but no, it's not the truth. That's not the truth. Again, we go back to the 16th century. We go to this Pope again, Gregorius, year 595, and this Pope is the one that says, no, we have to determine that she is the one that washed the feet of the Lord, who was at the foot of the cross, and that saw God the resurrected. And that is enough. But the church did a movement. The church in that moment decided to hide a lot of documents, a lot of papyri under key, because they had, at that time, they had a lot of problems with heresies. You know, they had a lot of problems. They had to fight a lot of heretics. And the last thing that the Vatican wanted was to have a problem with women in the church and giving problems. So they said, okay, all this information, all this document, all this papyri, let's hide them under key, protected, not to destroy them, but protected, and we will see what will happen with that, no? And that is the cause why it's a pity that for many centuries we have lost track of a lot of information that has been very important about Mary Magdalene. Let's say through those centuries, she was a little bit scorned by the church. Her protagonist was darkened, and her memory has been sunk in dust and spider webs, because it took a long time to redo all this thing. But very important is the 11th century. In the 11th century, many centuries flew from 595 until the 11th century. And there had been many wars, many upheavals. Europe grew, was fortified, and Europe became Christian. And in 1969, it's very close, guys, very close, not that far, arrived, and the Catholic Church understood that Mary Magdalene had been badly catalogued. I think the hierarchy regretted that the memory of Mary Magdalene had been beaten up. You know, her memory had been beaten up, and her truth has been confused. So the church became very serious with Mary Magdalene, and she became suddenly a very important figure, because they took out all these documents and they said, we have these documents, we have to clear her name up. She was not a prostitute. She was not married to Jesus. That's a lie. We have people like the writer of the Da Vinci Code, Dan Brown, who based his book saying it's true. No, it's not true. He was using information bits from here and from there, and he did a big cocktail with papyri that doesn't have to do with this at all. So, you know, people were confused by that movie and that book, but it's not based in reality. It's based in confusion, really. So her memory had been beaten up, and her truth has been confused. In the 11th century, they began to dive into these new documents that had been hidden for so long. And the church said, okay, who was she? And the church responded with great love towards Mary Magdalene and a lot of respect. And the church said she was a woman who loved deeply the Lord, who was another disciple of Jesus of Nazareth, and who lived glued to his feet during his passion, during the cross. Okay, which is the nation, we're finishing it now, our talk, which is the nation who was very much interested in Mary Magdalene? France. Out of the blue, France is the nation that was most devoted to her person. And the theologian from France in the 11th century began deep studies on her. They saw too many papyri, many books, many documents about her as a great apostle of the Lord. In a way, France adopted this character with a great devotion, with great respect, and a great devotion was born in the heart of France, especially in the south. In France, they never, ever, ever thought that she was a prostitute. France discovered so much essential information about her. They say, the theologians of that time, they say that she was able to escape to France after the crucifixion of the Lord, that France got sure that Mary Magdalene had been able to escape Palestine on a boat without a rudder, helpless and very, very scared. A slave to the currents and the sea waves, with Lazarus and companion and Martha's companion, and a little slave, a little servant called Sarah, a little girl who was Egyptian. The sea trip was appalling, but with the supernatural help of God, the Father, they made it to the south coast of France. And then we have to speak about Saint Maximin de Beaune. And there is where the relics are for people to go and venerate and remember her in a very beautiful place, a very blessed place, which is the Abbey of Vézelay, Bourgogne. Or there's another monastery called Saint Maximin de Beaune in the Alps. Both places, they are sure that they have some remains of Mary Magdalene. What the Church of France says, the bishop all these centuries has said is, Mary Magdalene died there in a cave, in the Saint Maximin de Beaune mountains, in a cave, that Saint Maximin was a friend. He was a friend, and he was bringing her for 33 years food and things to protect her body. And she stayed in that cave as a hermit, praying. Apparently she had a lot of supernaturality in that cave. She received the visit of the Lord, the visit of angels, and she received the Holy Communion every day by an angel. That's the story that we are told by all these popes. People who visit there, they can go and venerate her rests. And in 1279, in this abbey, they found people who went into this tomb. They found the tomb, and they opened the tomb, and in the interior there was a skeleton with a mark that said, "I am Mary Magdalene." It's a very interesting story. Until now, they do pilgrimage. All the world do pilgrimage there to Saint Maximin to venerate her. They have the skull. They say they have the real skull of Mary Magdalene there. Very interesting, because the skull has a little bit of red hair, and the blessed Catherine of Emmerich said that she was red-headed, blonde, but a little bit red-headed. So it has a wig. This skull has a wig, a red wig. And here in this part of the forehead, there's a little, it's not a wound. It's like the bone, it's like a little bit inward. And the bishop said that the Catholic Church in France says it's precisely when the Lord touched, they said, "Don't touch me," when they found each other in the tomb of the garden tomb. So it's a beautiful, 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 beautiful story, very much protected by a lot of popes now. There's a lot of miracles. I haven't been there. I'm dying to do that pilgrimage. And there's a lot of people who have received a lot of blessings and miracles going there, especially people who have gone there to ask for a good marriage or to have babies, a lot of miracles. And to finish, just to finish this beautiful chat, because I love to speak about Mary Magdalene. I could stay here the whole night speaking about Mary Magdalene. I will tell you that the bone of the hand, it's apparently in one of the monasteries of the Orthodox Church in the Mount Athos, the very holy Mount of Athos, where this Orthodox priest take the bone out of the hand, and they bless when they have like big storms or tornadoes or droughts, and they take this bone out of Mary Magdalene. They bless the tornado, and the tornado fades away. Or if they need rain, the rain comes. So it's a very, very important relic. I think I don't have more time, guys. I think I must finish now with all this information. I know it's a lot. I know my English hasn't been that proper because I was super nervous. I hope you can forgive me.
Maria, that was brilliant.
Absolutely,
it was really good. You have brought, we've had such a blessed day. Like, I think for me, Mary Magdalene now is 3-dimensional, between you, Father Florian, Father Solana. It's just amazing how she's come. So thank you so much, Maria, for your enthusiasm, your joy, and your English is good. Don't worry about that.
I'm so sorry, guys. It's difficult. I prefer to speak in Spanish, to be honest.
But do you know what's funny, Maria, is that I heard you speak about Mary Magdalene in the Spanish conference, and I felt like I must have heard her in Spanish, but I feel like I'm hearing her. Your English is fantastic, Maria, because I heard the same. So
that's because you like me, sweetie. I promise. I tried my best, and I'm very honored to be invited by you, because for me, Mary Magdalene is one of the most important saints to my heart, really.
Yes, yeah.
It's amazing because now when you're talking about going to France to the Basilica, and it's interesting because and it's like, I wish could I go there?
Yeah.
But here, Mary Magdalene has actually journeyed to us.
Yes.
She's came to us. That is that not amazing? We don't need to go there, but she's actually came to us, and through this is amazing. It's just opened that door for Mary Magdalene to say, "Come on, come on."
And I also feel that when we're able to go, we will all be going to Magdalene. We will all be going to Saint Maximin in the place where she is.
Please take me with you. Don't forget me, please.
Okay. Maria, thank you so much. God bless you. Thank you.
You and your family. Give love. Bye-bye.
God bless. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Jesus, your love completes me. Jesus.